Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm here with musician, teacher, and administrator, Chloe Parker.
Hi, everyone.
We'll be talking all about her career journey so far and discussing the experiences she's had with employment and education. Thanks for joining us and volunteering to share your story, Chloe.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm keen to get stuck into it. So, first of all, to start off with, why don't you tell us what you do for work now?
So I'm a very busy person, very, very busy. I am nonstop. So I'm doing 3 jobs at the minute, and I'm processing a degree. So I am first and foremost a vocal and guitar teacher. I teach 2 to 3 days a week. With a range of students aging from like 6 to 40, though I'd happy take younger and older, but that seems to be the range at the minute. For that same company, which is National Music Academy, I also do administration, so I work there. It's a casual job, so I get as many shifts as I'd want, kind of thing, which is really awesome, which is flexible for my busy schedule, but also means that when I need a bit more, I can get a bit more. Outside of that, I'm also a gigging musician. I gig on weekends, and sometimes it's been surprising since COVID. There's been a lot more weekday gigs, which have been cool too. So lots of evening gigs. And I'm also studying my Masters of High School Teaching. So I just got off my first prac placement.
Okay, so yeah, like you said, fairly busy then. I think there's a lot of different pies. Yeah, it's quite interesting you're doing the admin work and the music teaching for the same organisation. Then it's nice and handy.
Yeah, it's great. So it means that I can be in the way, like I'm constantly back and forth, but I'm going to the same place.
Oh, I guess kind of along those lines, following on from that, what does an average work day look like for you?
It usually starts pretty early. So a weekday looks very different to a weekend. A usual work day on the weekdays is usually I'm getting up at the crack of dawn, getting to uni, which is an hour travel for me because I study at Avondale in Coorombong.
Ah,
And
yeah.
then I'll be there for lectures and tutorials, and that'll take a few hours. Then usually straight from there, I'm traveling to NMA to either do admin or teaching, and that will probably end about 8 p.m. And then I get to come home and make dinner and catch up on uni work.
Okay, yeah. That's a big day from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah,
thereabouts.
yeah, and then on the weekends it's a lot quieter, but it usually means that I've got a pretty quiet day, and then in the evening I'll be going off to some venue to be able to perform. Tomorrow is going to be busy though. I've got 2 gigs, one in Newcastle and one in Moon and Flat, so I'll be traveling quite far, but it'll be good.
Okay, all right, excellent. And I suppose now it'd be really good if you could, I guess, go back a little bit in time and give us the story of your career journey so far.
Yeah, for sure. I'll break it down in the sections so it doesn't get too lost intertwined. But I'll start with music. So I always liked music as a kid, but it never really seemed too much like driven to perform or anything like that until I was about 9, and the Australian Youth Choir came to my school to pick out a few students to offer to audition for the choir. So they got each year group to sing, and they pretty much just walked by, and if they could hear you had good tone or a good voice, they gave you a little flyer to go audition for them. And that was me. I got a flyer, so I went and auditioned. I got in. I was in that for a few years, and then it got to the point where when I was in year 6, that they told me that I should audition for The Voice Kids, and I did that. I got up to the last round before TV rounds, and you either got an orange slip, which was sorry you didn't get through, or a green slip, which is most likely but not definite, and we'll email you soon. I got a green slip, so it was looking likely. But on my way out, the producers that were auditioning said, "Do you have professional singing lessons?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I'm just in a choir." And they were like, "Okay, well, just in case you don't get in, I think your next step is to get singing lessons." So when I didn't get through, but when I was in year 7, I got singing lessons, and kind of worked my way through high school, was performing in school, performing in chapel bands, at school concerts, all of that. And then I started with National Music Academy. I was getting lessons for them from year 7 onwards, and I was performing for them, etc. And they were offering for their students when I was in year 9. So I was about 14, 15, I was about 14, 15, that they were offering some paid gigs. So the manager at the time told me I should pick up an instrument, and that's when I picked up guitar. And then, yeah, I started learning guitar and building up a repertoire. And then, yeah, from around year 9, I was starting to gig and busk at different venues, just like local things like the Jesmond Shops or the Barn or Mustard Point, all different things. And yeah, and that eventually grew and grew. As the years went on in high school, I was doing pretty much 2 gigs a weekend by the time I was in year 12. And then when I left school, I I and ever since then I've been gigging constantly. So that's pretty much where the music has been going, which is good. And it's like I've got a band now, and I'm in the middle of recording things, which is great. So the music career is definitely probably my greatest passion, but I think I see it as my side hustle. I love being a musician, but the end goal isn't necessarily to become world famous. I think I'm more about becoming a high school music teacher and actually helping other people do their careers, because yeah, I had a really great music teacher in high school and he really encouraged me. So I kind of want to be that. So that's really my end goal. So yeah, from then I studied a Bachelor of Music at AMPA in Sydney, which was a 2-year trimester degree, which was a lot, but because it was during COVID, there was nothing else to do but study. So it got over really quickly. And yeah, and now I'm doing my Masters of High School Teaching, which is contributing to that. With administration, that was my first job when I was 14. So because I was a student at National Music Academy, they were hiring their students pretty much off the bat. If they wanted a job, they'd interview them, see if they were good, and yeah, from that they knew me inside out because I'd been a student with them for so long. Yeah, they hired me as admin, and then that was my first job. I stopped that when I moved to Sydney, but then when I came back after my degree, I picked it up again because they wanted me back, which was a pretty great sign. And then as well as that, when they got me back for admin, they asked if I wanted a vocal teacher position. So that's when I started teaching with them. I started teaching with them last year, and yeah, I've been teaching with them ever since, which has been really, I love it. It's my absolutely favorite thing in the world. So yeah, I've been teaching vocals and guitar since then.
Awesome. Yeah, that it sounds like the National Music Academy's had like a huge impact on your career journey. It's
Yeah, I'm really lucky. They've really looked after me and grown me from the ground up. It was funny. We had a student concert yesterday, where our students were performing, and because it was a public holiday, we were all the teachers were able to go, whereas usually we'd be teaching, so wouldn't be able to do it. So we got a teachers table, and Gianni, the owner, was saying how, yeah, some of the teachers had been students since they were kids, and it was like, yeah, that was me, because I was a student from when I was 12, and now I'm 20 and I'm working for them, so it's great.
yeah, and also it sounds like you started really young. Like I did a little bit of being a musician when I was younger, but that was kind of from the ages of I think like 14 through to maybe like 22. And like,
Mm.
yeah, we gig around Newcastle a little bit. KBSJ, if anyone's listening, want to go check out SoundCloud from all of our old stuff. But yeah, we were never very good. And yeah, it sounds like you've put a lot more into it to develop it as a career. And I know you said that it's sort of like, it feels like it's a side hustle and whatnot, but yeah, definitely way, way more professional than anything that I'd put into it as a career. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
congratulations.
It is great. And like at this stage, I've got a really lovely equal amount of solo gigs, and the main music like outlet I've been doing, I've got a duo with my partner, Honey Duo. Go check us out. Which has been our main way of gigging lately, which has been so lovely. It's just so lovely to share that with your partner and share a career kind of thing. So yeah, we've been doing heaps of duo gigs, and that's what really I'm about. I love the solo stuff, but I feel like when you have someone up there that you can really work off, and obviously me and my partner Aaron work off each other really well. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Well, yeah, you may have already answered this a little bit, but what's been your most favorite job so far, and then your least favorite?
There's some. When saw this question, I think there's some mixed answers about it. I love teaching. Teaching is my favorite thing in the world, and it's hard. It is very hard, especially, I'm wanting to be a high school teacher. There's some stigma with kids that don't necessarily understand my disability, which, by the way, I should probably announce I have dwarfism, achondroplasia dwarfism. And yeah, there's some stigma around it, and there's some really tough conversations that have to be had. But I don't really find that in my personal teaching, which is lovely. My singing and guitar teaching. But yeah, I love teaching, and even the hard bits make it all worth it, because at the end of the day, you're making more understanding children turn into understanding adults, which is, I guess, even the lows can be highs. I'm passionate about admin, but it's definitely hard. Like it's definitely probably the thing I do for money rather than I'm crazy about admin. Like I love it at times, like because I'm working in a music school as admin, I see so many students come in and out and so many beautiful stories, which I love. But yeah, admin's hard, because especially when you're trying to heckle people for money and they just tell you to piss off. It's not always lovely, but yeah. And gigging I love. I'm so passionate about gigging, but then again, as I've grown, like I've been able to now, well, where I'm at with my career, be able to pick and choose venues. But as I was growing as a musician, I've done a lot of, slimy gigs with hecklers and people that aren't very nice, or people that just want to hit on me. And I'm just like, you get two people when you're a short statured woman. You have the people that are just going to laugh and make fun of you, or the two people that think you're some kind of ideal, so they feel it's their job to persistently flirt with you even though you're definitely not interested.
All right. Yeah, I imagine, yeah, it'd be a little bit awkward if you were doing those gigs with your partner as well. But
Yeah,
yeah, not so much those type of gigs anymore.
yeah. My partner's definitely been asked before, being like, are you together? And he'd be like, yeah. And the guy would be like, oh damn, like she's so hot. And I'm like, oh god, yuck.
Yeah, yeah. Can't say I had that happen too many times to me while I was gigging. But so, uh, if you, I suppose, had to pick out what you enjoy most about the work you do now, it could be from multiple roles. You kind of touched on it a little bit already, but is there a most favorite part about what you're doing?
I think helping people, like, and improving people's lives, like that sounds so dramatic, but it really
No,
is.
not at
Like, I
all.
think in all three of my gigs, like I love helping musicians grow and helping my students grow. And in admin, I love helping them find their, even like, because I help allocate students to teachers and stuff. I love seeing them grow through other teachers, not necessarily me, but just grow in the industry. Like at the student concert we were at last night, there's so many students that weren't mine that teachers kept being like, are they yours? And I'm like, no, but I've known them since they were little, because I've been able to see them through their lessons, and it's been amazing just to see them grow that way. And for gigs, like the power of music is always, can sometimes surprise me. Like how many times I'll be at a venue and someone will come up to me and mention a song I sung and say how that helped them or how that moved them or inspired them. My first student actually ever, this was before I was teaching for NMA. When I was studying in Sydney, I was just doing a little bit of teaching by myself for a while, just on the side. And my first student ended up approaching me because she saw me at a gig one day, like 3 years prior, and it inspired her to pick up the guitar. And then she ended up running into me a few years later, being like, "Could you teach me?" And that was
Oh,
that was
awesome.
that. I think that is my most like the story that probably helps define how much why I love teaching, because that was like such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the answer you gave there just sort of covers all three of the like
Hmm.
all of the roles that you're doing as well, like helping people. So it's quite nice, not corny at all. It's exactly why I love doing my job as well.
Yeah.
Um, so do you have anyone who I know you said that you sort of inspired other people just there? Do you have anyone who inspires or has inspired your career?
Uh, I had the most wonderful music teacher. His name is Andrew Scully, and the way he kind of inspired me and always pushed me to do my best, to be my best, to perform all the time, and the opportunities he gave me. I think he's the entire reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Yeah, it's the entire, like, how many times when I say I'm doing high school teaching and people turn around and be like, ew, why would you do that? Like, high school kids,
Perfect.
but every time is because I had the best teacher who gave me a chance, and if I can be half the teacher he was, yeah, I think I'm gonna do pretty well. But yeah, that he was the main one. I've had so many like friends in the music industry that have, inspired me to keep going, to keep doing it. And like it's lovely to see, like, I've got some really good friends who started at the exact same kind of point as me, because National Music Academy helps kind of push so many musicians' careers. Like, I have a friend, Austin Mackay, who's now like fully, like, his full career is music, and he performs in Byron Bay pretty much all the time, and that's his life. And I guess, yeah, my friends have inspired me that have continued with their career. But yeah, I think, and one extra bit, like, I've got the most supportive family in the world. But my mama, especially, my mum is so driven, and she has like so much potential in life, and I guess I just want to do her proud all the time, so I guess that inspired me as well.
Ah, that's really cool that you've got so many different points of inspiration to come from. Because some people answer that and say that like, hey, I've pulled myself up by my own bootstraps, and there wasn't really anyone. But especially when you mentioned your teacher first, I think so many people have just especially in high school, just like the one or two teachers that like they really made a difference and sort of changed the way you think about things or the way you do things.
Yeah, for sure. Mhm.
So, next question I've got here for you. Have you ever experienced any barriers to gaining employment in the past because of disability?
Um, Not really. And I think I'm really lucky because of that. I think because the careers I chose are really about knowing people. And it's about who you know. And because, I was a student with NMA before I started working for them, they knew that my disability was never a barrier for me. Um, and yeah, with venues, I don't think I've ever come across it. Like, when I started doing the degree in Sydney, I started reaching out to Sydney venues, but I found that was just really kind of headstrong and a bit cocky, if I can say, the scene itself. So I don't think it was necessarily because of my disability that I wasn't getting much work there. I just think it's a different competitive scene.
Yeah,
Um, there was a point where I was like looking for, different kind of work that I could do on the side when I was doing my degree. like bar work, etc. And that never really came across. And I don't know if that maybe was because of my disability, but then COVID kind of took over and no one was working. So that was kind of that. But yeah, I think I've been really lucky that it hasn't really gotten in the way of gaining any employment.
Um, and what about challenges like at work? What are some of the, do you have any challenges that you've come up against while you've been working?
Yeah, a few. Like there's definitely yeah, I might not have had trouble gaining employment, but during employment there are always things. Height and ability is one of the main things. Just being able to reach things. Like there's one place I work at that literally I cannot get in unless an average height person is with me because I can't reach the door. I can't reach the front door because it's way too high, which is
Okay.
which is hard. And just being access is can be really hard. Being able to like I can very rarely do a gig purely by myself. I either have to have a roadie to help me with my gear, or which thankfully NDIS help fund, or I have to, if I can't book my roadie, I have to depend on either my partner, my dad, or the people working at the venue to help me set up. So that yeah, just access can be really hard. Outside of that, just people's mindsets about me can be really difficult. I find I always overcome them usually at venues because people will have a little snigger and a laugh and maybe make it an opinion of me, but then I open my mouth and start to sing, and by the end of it I've got them in the palm of my hand and they absolutely understand. That literally, so that exact situation happened at I did the Tamworth Country Music Festival with my partner this year.
Yeah.
We were performing gigs, and we walked into one venue, and I knew, like, when you've lived my life, just on the looks of faces who are making their minds about you, and who are being a bit discriminatory, who are whispering, etc., because you know exactly what to look for. And there was this one guy with his mates that was an older gentleman who was having a bit of a laugh, staring constantly, etc. But by the end of the gig, he came up to me basically in tears and said I was his favorite musician in the entire world. And then I kept running into him throughout the festival, and he kept telling all his friends how great I was. So someone who eventually was like initially was made a certain judgment, they usually overcome them, especially in venues. But it can be things simply as walking to venues. If I have to park far away and it's a big night out for everyone in Newcastle, and how many times I've been someone's driven past and shouted the word midget or whatever it is, like it's horrible. But I
Um,
guess as well, it's stupid that I have to say this, but it's like I'm also used to it. Like, I know the people that know me don't think of me that way, and yeah, eventually as I said, I seem to grasp the crowd pretty much so they don't think that way. But yeah, it's definitely hard.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry that you have to go through things like that, but it is yeah, quite interesting. You said you kind of got this like this superpower to be able
Yeah,
to change people's minds, and I think you were talking about it before when you were talking about like even teaching like with the high school students sometimes and things like that, and
yeah,
turning it into kind of like a
okay.
teachable moment where you can
Yeah,
change people's opinions and minds, and like maybe next time when they see someone different from themselves they might not
yeah.
react that way.
Yeah, that was actually, yeah, I had so overall my first teaching placement was absolutely amazing. I had one class that just had a group of kids that weren't being lovely. And it got to one point when my supervisor was away and I had a casual teacher who was supervising me, that they took that advantage to be even crueler.
Yeah.
And I was a like they the school took it really hard, and they spoke to them, etc., they called home, etc. And then after that I ended up sitting down. I realized, because I kind of got swayed from talking, like addressing my disability by a couple of individuals, not at the school, but just people that were like, oh, maybe don't bring it up, and maybe they'll take advantage of it if you bring it up. But that kind of made me realize that we do need to talk about it. So I ended up sitting with this class and explaining to them about my disability, gave them the forum to be able to ask questions. And so many of them were able to just speak their mind. So many were just like, how do you drive? Blah, blah, blah. Do you have a boyfriend? All these things, these things. But and by the end of that placement, there were some kids that still, maybe had those mindsets but just were quiet about it and didn't act on them anymore. But so many, I ended up creating really good, healthy relationships with some of those students that were really cruel at the start, but then ended up coming to me, apologizing after that conversation and talking about it, and then ended up, being the kids in the class that, just when I was trying to get their attention, they were the ones being like, shush guys, Miss is speaking. And the fact that I was able to turn those mindsets around actually proved to me why I want to be a teacher and why I want to do this.
Well, yeah, it's sort of like I think, like you said, giving people the forum to be able to ask questions and like sort of break down those prejudices and stereotypes and discrimination, like that's really good. It's just sort of unfortunate that burden is sort of pushed onto you automatically. Yeah. It would be nice if there was someone else that was doing that with them beforehand, but
and I guess it's like, it's just the responsibility of the condition kind of thing. And I know some people that have my condition don't necessarily want to bring it up or make it a point, but I think my main thing is, like, education is the best way to counteract discrimination. And if they know, and they know through me, which is going to be the most accurate kind of understanding, that discrimination is going to be so far less. And eventually, and one of the main things I always say that kind of doesn't scare them, but I think it puts things in perspective, is because I'm a rarity. I was born to 2 short-statured parents, but 80% of short-statured people are born to 2 average height parents, and that's 1 in 25,000 births. So literally every kid in my class has a chance of having a child who's exactly like me. And me educating, me making them understand, means that if that happened to happen to them, they're aware. And I think that's why I also make it important, because one day they could end up having a kid like me, or a niece like me, or a grandchild like me, or just simply a friend like me, and they know how to act better, and they won't be the hecklers on the street. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you think has your disability helped you at all throughout your career?
Yes. Some parts. I think one thing, and I wrote this down, and I know this can be a bit controversial, but I think one bit is that a lot of not businesses, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily any of the businesses I've been a part of, but I've been able to see it, is that they, people like diversity in this day and age. And when you've got a very obviously physical disability, it encourages diversity and it looks good. And I wouldn't necessarily, that's from any of my workplaces, but I know definitely, I love my schools and all that kind of thing, but definitely programs I've been a part of and things like that, it looks good. I'm I'm a strong, headstrong woman that has a physical disability, and at the end of the day that inspires people. So I think that is kind of really helped me kind of get into particular things and get places. It feels like a bit of a cheat way to get things, even though I think I deserve the things that I get anyway. But and one of the main things was having a disability meant that I had something I auditioned for Haywire in 2019, the ABC program. It's a program where you have to speak about your story and all that. And because I have such a kind of unique and inspiring story, I became the Newcastle winner for 2019. And that was the most amazing experience, and I've still working with people from ABC trying to help the Haywire program, etc. So many, like, a few years after I was a part of it, and I was able to meet politicians through that and all that kind of thing. I met the Governor General at the time, which was, I'm still fangirling over. But yeah, so I think it's definitely helped me in particular parts too. But yeah, and I guess I think it's not my disability on its own. I think it's the fact that who I am and my disability as a kind of conjunction is something that people like to have. So yeah, I think it's helped me in certain parts.
All right. Yeah, it's interesting you said about Haywire. Usually I'm pretty onto that, but I was in the UK at the time, so yeah, I must have missed the year you were in it.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next part here, what's one thing that you think you could tell a recruiter to make the application and hiring process fairer for, I guess, not just you or people with your particular disability, but fairer for everyone?
I think it's don't underestimate people. I feel if my career so far has shown me one thing, it's that the people that gave me a chance because they knew I could do it. And if they, if people actually, got to know the people that are applying with their disability, like, everyone has strengths. And yeah, I can at least, like, I know it's not just about my condition, but like, everyone who has short stature, like, has the same cognitive ability that I can. And I think sometimes, at least with when you discussing physical disabilities, at least, that like they always, there's a stigma to think that if there's something wrong physically, there's probably something going on in the head, and mentally. And even, and I'm not saying that mental disabilities hold you back, but having, I think when you talk of physical, you think, oh wow, well, they can't reach that or they can't lift that, so we're not going to give them the job. But then you realize that we've lived a life of finding how to do things. Like, you should see me scale the shelves at Aldi. It's quite the obstacle course. I'm a master of it now. But I think it's just don't underestimate. And as well, like, even people with like things that can be quite debilitating for them, they're always going to have strengths. And if they're looking for employment, they're obviously at the stage that they think they can do it. And I think that, like, that is the most important thing, is to just give them a chance and not to underestimate. There was this really awesome, I don't remember what the program was called, but this really awesome SBS series a couple of years ago about showing all different people with disabilities trying to get jobs and things like that. And I think every single employer in that situation was just super surprised that the person they were hiring for the show was really good. And like, at the end of the day, us people with disabilities have more skills than you, like, that anyone can expect, because it's like our whole life has been hard. Like, we've learned to overcome so much, and I think that makes us really good workers. So yeah, I think it's just don't underestimate people.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of people with disability are often forced to become excellent problem solvers. And so, yeah, when a challenge comes up, it's different ways of thinking about getting around it to what other people would normally. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned just giving people a chance, because that seems to be a lot of my work. Working with young people with disability, trying to get them into employment. A lot of the time, I'm just like trying to liaise with employers and go like, all right, come on, so this is a demonstration of their skills, blah, 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 basically convincing people to give them a chance. And then I haven't had it happen yet where someone's gone in to do work experience and they've not gone, oh, wow, yeah, they're actually really good, because you just know that they've got this preconceived idea about what their abilities are going to be and what their strengths are going to be. And then they're just not expecting the results that they get. So yeah, I find it interesting, frustrating, but interesting.
Yeah, my mum was working in job support for people with disabilities for a long while, and she was saying how it can be really frustrating because there are all these participants that have all the potential in the world, and that sometimes people just don't want the patience or to give them the time that they need to be able to give them a chance, and that's really horrible. Like one of my partner's housemates, um she has a disability, and she was really struggling, not because they weren't giving her work, but not giving her work in the field that she was qualified for. Like she was fully qualified for administration and all that kind of thing, and they just wanted to give her retail work, and that was not what she was qualified to do or what she wanted to do. But yeah, like she had a really huge struggle with that. And yeah, and I think if just people gave more opportunities and didn't underestimate people, like everyone would have so many awesome disabled workers for them, and it would be so much, and that rollover effect would make a more inclusive community. So yeah.
Well, speaking of inclusive communities, if you had a piece of advice for employers or organisations out there on how they could make their workplaces more inclusive, what would that be?
I think just accessibility, like at least from my point of view, like I know there are so many different disabilities that need certain things, but goodness me, things being able to be physically accessible can be one of the most frustrating things. Especially for someone with my condition. I can do everything as long as things are accessible. Like, as I said, like being able to open a door shouldn't be hard. But when it's the door handle is literally 2 feet above your head and you're 4'2", it's just not possible. Ramps, things like that. Like even though like I can walk and like not in a wheelchair, I go around places and literally will voice to my partner or whoever I'm with, being like, this is not physically accessible to people, and that sucks. Like I was going around a university campus, not one that I went to, but I was going through a university campus for a gig, and I was like, where are the ramps? Like there are so many stairs here, and this is where accommodation is. Like how are people in wheelchairs meant to like study here if like it literally just makes it impossible for that to happen? Or businesses that are 2 flights and there's no lifts or things like that, 2 flights of stairs and no lifts, and it's just like it's so hard. And like how many times I have to just fight for, I'm so lucky I've got like a disability parking sticker and things like that, but how many times I have to go up to businesses being like that I'm like unis and things like that, and I'm like, I need to be let into this gate because otherwise, like, so I can park in the disabled spot there. Otherwise, I'm walking like so far to get to the class or whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's just making things accessible, and even things like soap in a bathroom. I think I keep going to the same. There's one bathroom in my entire university that I can reach the soap, and like how many times I've gone over to the office and been like, oh come can we get one down low or things like that, and they definitely mean well and they want to do it, but they forget about it and it just doesn't happen. So yeah, things being physically accessible is, I think, the most important thing for me, at least.
Yeah, recently I'm still recovering from a knee reconstruction, and I tore my ACL like 3 months ago, I think, and so I've been on crutches a fair bit and sort of limping around, and places that I'd thought previously like I hadn't been in the mindset to actually pick up on it, and until I had some mobility issues, and I'm like, wow, there are so many places that aren't as accessible as they should be. And even when I've been overseas, especially in Croatia, I noticed that they didn't have the curb cuts so that you can sort of get down on the street, and I was just like, wow, like this would be ludicrously hard to do with mobility issues compared to like back home. And so it is, I still find it quite surprising that even though we have all of this policy and like government policies around making things physically accessible, that there's still so much that needs to be done.
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%. And it's just the little things too that when you're able-bodied, you don't necessarily think about. But yeah, like the fact that there was I at the place I did my first degree, it was fine because there was so many people around. The microwave was really high. And I was always just getting a friend to put my food in there, etc. And the dean was next to me at one point, and I asked him to put it in there, and it just clicked for him that the microwave wasn't accessible for me, and he felt so horrible. And the next day it was completely changed. And like sometimes it isn't about it's not about ignorance or people not wanting to do things. It's purely just sometimes because they don't think about it, and there's not enough advocacy for the things that. And sometimes it's my fault too. Like sometimes I don't speak up. I was there, I think it was in my last trimester that recollection happened upon my dean. And I think I should have first aid but gone over there and told them. But sometimes we just put up with it, which is pretty horrible because we shouldn't have to. But I think we've all a lot of people have just lived lives of things just not being accessible. So we just kind of find ways to do it. And even though there are much easier ways to ask people to change things, sometimes we just go for the challenge because it's all we know.
Yeah, yeah. I think it would become tiring advocating all the time, and sort of like I mentioned before, like we're providing a forum to, I guess, break down discrimination and things like that. It is unfortunate that it's sort of like the burden is all sort of pushed on you to be able to have to do that.
Yeah.
But if you had some advice for anybody out there with a disability who might be having some issues engaging with employment, what would that advice be?
I think coming from the way my career has kind of panned out is make connections. Talk to people. If you want to be a hairdresser, keep getting your hair cut at the same place. And if you've got the qualifications, make the connections with the hairdressers, talk to the hairdressers, and then eventually they're going to know you. And when you ask them, when a job comes up and you ask them for a job, they're going to know that you're able and that you can do it no matter what your disability is. So I think the most important thing that I have for advice is make connections. And again, that's hard work. Most people, able-bodied people, can just put their resume in, and as long as things tick the right way, they get the interview and the interview goes well, and that's it. Whereas people with disability, they do the application looks great, they love it, they get them for an interview, and pretty much the headlights are turned off and they've already made their decision. So I think we shouldn't have to do it, but I think the best way for people with disabilities that have a tough time with employment is to make those connections, to get jobs within industries you're already working in. Talk to your lecturers, talk to the people that are teaching you if you're doing degrees or things like that. Get them to give you references and things like that. Work harder for more people with higher power, which again shouldn't have to be the way, but it's the way I've seen works. And yeah, and as I said, and even if they're not doing degrees or things like that, go to the industry that you love, that you want to get work in, create connections with them by either using their services or just getting to know them, or knowing people that know them, and then creating those connections. Because you can even see the rollover effect from exactly the how we met at the People's Library. I had a gig at Golden Pineapples, and that rolled over to people watching me there, to getting the Blind Deaf Ball, which then from that became the People Library. And then from that I've got a women's march in a few weeks. I've got a couple of other private functions that I've had because people know me, people have seen me. So I guess make yourself seen and make those connections is my greatest advice.
Yeah, that's really valuable advice, and I think it can be as simple sometimes as just joining and being active in Facebook groups if you're, not quite prepared to go out and do all of the socialization and whatnot. Just building those networks. And it can be slow, but like you said, really quite valuable as people start to
Yeah.
know you.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, I think, I reckon we could probably leave it there for today. If there is anyone at home that's an NDIS participant of school leaving age looking to engage with employment in the Newcastle, Hunter, or Lake Macquarie regions, then get in touch with Social Model, see how we can assist you. I'll have all of the stuff in the thing down the bottom there. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Anything else before we finish up here, Chloe?
Well, it wouldn't be interview if I didn't do a little plug. I just want to my social media, my music stuff. So yeah, if you want to check me out on Chloe Parker Music or Honey Duo, it's those names on all socials, on Facebook, Instagram, etc. So go check them out and come to a gig.
I can definitely recommend. Chloe's got an amazing voice and she's pretty good on the guitar as well. I'll put all of those links in the video down the bottom as well. But yeah, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have a chat with you about employment, Chloe. It's been an absolute pleasure connecting with you and getting to know you better.
It was so lovely. Thank you so much, Sean.
No worries. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.